Well, here we are. It's Friday, and it's May 27th, 2022, and this is our weekly video. We do them every Friday. Take a look and see what's been going on in the Asian art market around the world since last Friday. A lot has happened, actually. There's been a lot of things going on. As you know, we did the video earlier this week reviewing Rob Michael's sale over in the Netherlands. In Bruges did really well. Some interesting stuff, some very high prices, a couple of surprises, as you know, and isn't that the fun of the auction world? One of the things I wanted to first go over is some of the results that happened over on Live Auctioneers and so forth in the last week, because there were some really interesting sales. And these are for the people that use the global member pages, because increasingly, as I said before, eBay is still getting things, but the things that were starting to turn up on the Live Auctioneers and Valuable, the global member pages that we're digging out each week, are getting better and better. And I think I sense there's a shift going on in the marketplace where people are selling things. And I'm going to go through some of the results and to show you what I mean. All right. Oh yeah, we did the weekly video earlier on the global member page as well. That's the video we do for the users over there every week to go over what's coming up. Primarily, it's preview information, sales that are coming up that we think are interesting, and show some examples, that kind of thing. So check that out. It's pretty impressive. Any rate, let's see here. This was the Malay Brothers sale that took place earlier this week, on the 20th, rather, just about it was a week ago today, I guess. It did very well. Malay Brothers are an interesting auction house. They've been around for years. I've done business with them. They're nice guys, two brothers that work together, and they get access to some really good things. And every once in a while, they come up with some amazing Asian art. And this week the sale did well. This was matter of fact, one of our users here bought this. We got an inquiry about it. He wanted to know what I thought about it, and I said I think it's a terrific 18th century vase. They had sold it as Blanc de Chine, and I don't think it is. I think it's white porcelain. It's got a nice bit of crackle in the body, which Blanc de Chine typically doesn't have in this manner. The foot rim, the paste and everything. It had an added bronze or gilt cap to it on the top, as you can see. But a beautiful example, relief worked, and it went for $4,000. That's the other thing I wanted to mention was that Malay Brothers have very low estimates. They're famous for it, and what their estimates actually tell you is that there's no reserves. That's basically, they use their estimates as a guide for reserves. And in this case, they had a $300 to $500 estimate, which means there was basically no reserve on it, and it ended up selling for $4,000, which I think is a fair price. I think it was a very nice vase, and the fellow that bought it, I think, was pretty happy he got it. All right, and then moving on to this, the transitional Wutsai jar. These turn up off and on in the United States. They turn up in Europe. They turn up at Bonhams, and all the big auction houses get them all the time. And this was a nice one. It had the double outcroppings of rocks, and then the chimes coming down the side, and the Buddhist incense burners and all that business. Nice looking pot. Good decoration. Absolutely period. Ended up selling for only $5,000, which I think was a pretty good buy. As I said, the estimate was low, $1,500 to $2,500, and you haven't seen one of these jars sell for anywhere close to $2,500 in a well-advertised auction if it's in good shape for probably 15 years. And this one sold for $5,000. I think that was on the low side of its value, but somebody picked it up, and that was a good deal. The other thing was the cricket cage, the silver hanging cricket cage. I love this, and I commented on it in one of the videos. I thought the estimate was low. I thought it would easily go through it. This was a nice one with the silver dragons all around the top. Nicely worked cage. The bars weren't bent. Everything looked like it was in good shape. One of the bars looked like it had been repaired right there. There's a little bulge where maybe somebody put a few drops of solder in to hold it, or it may have been just been coming loose and somebody put some solder in there just to keep it from falling out, which is probably a prudent thing to do. And this sold for $750 plus the buyer's premium. The buyer's premium there, I think, is 25%. There it is. So the all-in price would have been around $1,000. But nice item, and you don't see them very often. That's the cool part of it. All right, and they also had these, a really good selection of wool saddle rugs, Chinese examples, all 19th century. They were in pretty good shape overall. I thought they were nice. And there was a variety of different types, which made them interesting. And somebody picked up all three of them for $1,300 plus the buyer's premium, and that seems just about fine. These typically sell for $500 to $700 a piece, $500 to $800 a piece even. Sometimes they hit one of them will bring $1,000, and somebody bought all three of them for $1,300. Buying lots is generally always a good idea because something happens in the mental calculus when people calculate what a lot is worth, and they don't tend to in their minds price them separately. If you looked at this lot separately and said, what would you pay for that bag, that saddle, and then that saddle individually, what would you pay? And that's how you get up to just $1,300, because somebody's thinking, well, I'd pay $700 a piece, so then that's $2,100 plus the premium. If I can buy the lot, that's great. And lots tend to be good buys. That's all there is to it. All right, and then this I thought was one of the niftiest pieces of Chinese furniture I'd seen in a while. Very nice Qing Dynasty desk. And these desks come apart. They're like campaign chests. This big long section on top lifts off, and then you have these two banks of drawers, and they fit together with pins. So they're very easy to move around. They were made to be moved, but this was a nice one. It had a beautiful color. The wood color on this was absolutely outstanding. Here you can see the drawer construction. Really, really fine desk. Really, really fine. Beautiful color. And beautifully carved and everything. And there's the pin. You can see that's the pin that locks into the top when it's put on. And that's all it holds the tops on in these things. They don't screw them in place or anything. They tend to be kind of heavy. So when they have these pins slotted up into the upper section when they're put together, that's all you need. That's all you need. And somebody bought this, I think, very reasonably, $2,250. That was a good buy. If you go into a good store that sells Chinese furniture, a desk like this is going to be $8,000 to $12,000. So I think that was somebody jumped on it. I suspect the buyer was somebody who'd been looking for one of these desks and was not willing to pay the prices that some of the big dealers ask. So he bought it this way, which is fine. So the way to buy things. And then there was the pair of Chinese hexagonal reticulated lamps. These are pretty rare. This is a rare form. And they were overall, including the finials to the top of the lamps, they were about 28 inches tall. The vases each were around a foot tall. But these are those reticulated examples of the honeycomb pattern. And then the decoration helps you date them. If you look at the decoration on here, we'll get back to it. There it is. This scene, this color palette, is the same scene you see on large export pieces, on punch bowls, on teacups, and so forth, dating from around 1780, plus or minus a couple of years. But this was the pattern. It was sort of a stock pattern, a pattern that they used a lot because it was so popular in the West. They applied it whenever possible. it's rather ubiquitous, but I like how it was worked into different vase forms on the side of the vase. Here you have this vase flat with flowers coming out of it. There's another one over there. There's another one here and here. All of it. So it's all fitted with little vases. Here are the sockets if anybody's interested. At any rate, somebody paid $4,000 for the pair, but what a beautiful pair of lamps for $4,000. I know that sounds like a lot for table lamps, but not when you make them out of porcelain. The vases alone probably would be worth about that. And if you're going to have lamps, buy these, if you can. All right, or convert something. All right. Now over to this sale, the Roland New York sale. I don't know if many of you are familiar with Roland's. They're in Long Island and near in Glen Cove. They've been around for quite a while. It's an older a man runs it. It's a family business. I talked to them the other day. They're nice people. They're tremendously nice. And what's interesting is that they are one of these companies in New York that gets residual property, and sometimes that the major auction houses don't take. And this is a fairly common thing you'll see. Millay Brothers in the past has gotten things from gets things from the big auction houses. Sotheby's does. A Stair Gallery does. Obviously Sotheby's does. And Roland's, and they have access, and they have a good reputation. The people that are dealing with Sotheby's and Christie's also deal with them. They run, from what I can tell, a very straight show, like Millay Brothers. No fooling around. Here's the stuff. And we're going to go through some of the prices they had, because they had some remarkable results, but for a very good reason. And we talked about it over on the global pages in those videos leading up to the sale. But here it is. For example, there was this Peach Form Cinnabar 18th century lacquer box. All right, this was a beautiful box, absolutely splendid, in an amazing condition. Absolutely amazing condition, top to bottom. This is an 18th century box. It looks as good as it did the day it was made. There's a little wear on the feet, but that's about it. And it has all these characters around it. Now, you may remember there was a box like this, a bowl with this type of calligraphy running around it, I think in the Irving collection or one of those collections not long ago. And they brought a small fortune, over $100,000 for a couple of bowls. This is a nice sized box in beautiful shape, and it brought $100,000 on a $2,000 to $3,000 balance, or estimate rather. Now, this had been the material in this sale came largely from two people, and people you've probably heard of. One of them you have to have heard of if you're collecting Chinese stuff. It came from Herbert and Florence Irving's collection. Remember, Sotheby's handled the Irving collection a year or two ago. A bunch of their collection. They lived right opposite the Metropolitan Museum in New York, and they left the bulk of their collection to the Metropolitan Museum. Absolutely amazing stuff. He was the fellow that he and his brother started Cisco Systems, the food company, and they did very well for themselves, and he became an avid Asian art collector. He was the guy that had the famous pig jade that was estimated by Sotheby's for $5,000 to $7,000 and ended up selling for $2.2 million. At any rate, there was some property they didn't take, as always happens, and some of the stuff ended up going to Roland's, and we'll talk about them. But the other stuff came from June Hirsch Jones, who was she formerly lived in New York. She was a very well-known decorator and designer, well-to-do, wealthy family, and she had a home in Palm Beach. And she was a collector. She was a collector's collector. She loved to travel, and a lot has been written about her. She was a real character. At any rate, she was famous for wearing big glasses. She wore these giant, like Aristotle Onassis glasses. And but she was apparently a very nice person, tremendous personality, and she had a lot of good stuff. And some of it ended up going to Roland's, and they did a good job with it. In this case, it brought $100,000. And then there was this. This was one of the bargains of the sale, and I happened to buy it. And it was a pair of Japanese works on paper with gilded mons on them. Here they are. And I just thought they were stunning, and left a bid about, well, I left a big bid on them, but anyway, I didn't pay a lot. But beautifully framed, ready to go, in good size. These are large. They're 20, what's the size, the image size, the frame size on these is 30 inches tall, 21 inches wide. So they're very handsome size and beautifully framed. And they went for just $150. I thought they'd bring 1,000, and I left a bid accordingly, but I ended up getting them for just $150. I look at them in this way: the frame job, and these are under. Always check the frames. For example, these frames have some very expensive ultraviolet glass on them. She was, like I said, Mrs. Jones was a decorator. She knew about artwork, and she was very careful with her stuff. And she had these framed under UV glass. And UV glass, really fine, non-reflective UV glass is incredibly expensive. And I figure these pictures probably cost $400 a piece to frame, minimum, maybe $600 a piece. So I'm really pleased to get these. And so they go. But Japanese art is not as hot as Chinese right now, and I guess these got missed. And then on to this, the Chinese embroidery. This was a seat cushion, seat cover. I had pointed it out in a couple of videos. I talked about it over on the global member page video, and thought that it was going to bring probably at least 4,000 to 6,000, somewhere in there. This was a beautiful piece of silk. Had a little bit of staining on it, but nothing too disastrous. And but wonderful weave, absolutely superb weave, probably 18th century, very fine, and ended up taking off. It had a $200 to $300 estimate. Ended up selling for $7,500, which is about right, plus the premium. So you're all in. You're up to almost $10,000. And then they had this. This was also from Mrs. Jones' estate. It was a celadon, pale celadon, Mei-ping vase, beautifully done. I want to say it was something around 10 inches tall, I think. I don't see the dimensions in here, but from what I remember, that's what it was. And if you come over here, they kept the receipt. And this was bought by Keene Associates. This was who was a collector in New York. He had a number of good things in this sale, and it was estimated at what was this thing estimated at? It was estimated like nothing, $2,000 to $3,000, and he paid $2,400 for it back in what year was this? 1984, almost 40 years ago. And pale celadon green from Rare Art. And if you don't know who Rare Art is, it's Alan Hartman. And Alan Hartman is the fellow he's a major dealer in all categories. He's been around for many years. His father was a dealer. If you've been collecting Chinese art for any length of time, you probably recall that Christie's did a double hardbound cataloged sale of just part of his jade collection some years ago, back in 2008 or 9, ended up doing just great, millions of dollars, and he had tough reserves on things too. This guy's a very aggressive dealer, and he still did very well with it, even with the aggressive reserves. He'd been collecting jade and Asian art since he was a child with his dad, who was an extremely knowledgeable dealer in the city. At any rate, they bought this. They sold this vase to J.H. Keene Associates on 530 East 72nd Street in New York, back in the day. And this time around, it did a little better, about $150,000. And it's got their Rare Art label on the back, Yongshen marked foot rim. It looked fine to us. We had a number of inquiries about it. I don't know if anybody who inquired from our side got on our among our users bought it, but I know that a couple of them left pretty aggressive bids. So I never found out how much they were leaving, but one of them may have been the buyer. At any rate, this is came from it ended up in the collection of June Hirsch Jones, and I don't know what the connection is between her and Keene Associates. It might have been a family business or something, because I see that name in a number of places throughout this sale. But at any rate, $150,000, did great. And she also, in her collection, had these. I thought these were terrific. These were big, 20 inches tall, a pair of reticulated, fully articulated, carved wooden Meiji period red-headed cranes to hang on a wall. And they're flat, like plaques. Here they are. I thought they were great. And you don't see things like this that often, and these are very decorative, 20 inches, so they're good size, so they'd look great hanging on a wall. And these just went for $1,200. Not a bad deal at all. And then there was this. Now this this incense burner came from the estate of Florence and Herbert Irving. These are the Irving part of the sale. And we had left a bid on it, didn't get it, but it wasn't much of a bid. It wasn't a huge bid. And I've had these exact same barrel form with these rebuses on them, incense burners before. They're all early, late Ming. And this one had a nice, beautiful stand and beautiful lid for it made, and just a wonderful package. And you can see that this white business that's stuck in between the knobs, that's just dried metal polish. People used to polish these things all the time, and if you see these old buildups in here, and you're wondering why the piece is so shiny, that's because it had been polished many times, and there's still all this residue left behind. And you can get that off with a toothbrush, which is fine, and there's a lot of it on the bottom. But anyway, this did great. About $1,700, and we had one. It's funny because we had one that was very, very similar out of a house in New Hampshire, Maine, a couple of years ago that we sold, and I think it brought up just about the same price, somewhere around $1,600, $1,800. So that seems to be the price. And they also, from the Irving family, came this very nice early, looks like a Burmese sculpture, but really good quality, really good quality. Here it is. There's the front of it, the side of it. But when you looked at the details of this, it's just beautifully done, and it still has its pigment. And the Irvings traveled a lot in Asia, so it's I wouldn't be at all surprised if they picked this up somewhere along their travels from a good dealer in some small town. It was estimated at only $600 to $800, ended up selling for $4,000, which is fine. But it's a beautiful, beautiful carving. And then also from their house was this mother of pearl inlaid cabinet. And this isn't an extremely old cabinet. It's probably from the 20s or something, but it's inlaid with calligraphy and script and all that business. It is beautifully made. This thing was beautifully made. Just absolute quality throughout the whole thing, even though it's not 400 years old. But it's superb workmanship all the way through. Absolutely lovely. And in the end, it did well, but I don't think it brought a crazy price. It brought $1,000. And this was from as I said, the Florence and Herbert Irving collection. And it was just great. And this is also from, I believe this was from the Jones collection. It was they had miscatalogued this as an album of Japanese ink drawings. They called it Japanese ink drawing reproductions. And they don't have anybody there that really knows the stuff well. They did the best they could. I'm not criticizing them. This stuff isn't easy. And but this was actually an album of Chinese paintings, and absolutely beautifully done, terrific. And I actually got an inquiry on it. I don't know who this artist is, but I could tell by looking at the work that it was very well done, and very stylistically consistent and meticulous and terrific. And I told one guy, he said he was going to leave. I got an inquiry, and he was thinking, should he leave $1,100 on it or something, because it had a $1,200 to $1,600 estimate. And I said, I think the estimate is off by 2 zeros. And I thought it would bring over 100,000. And I said it may even bring 2. And ended up bringing 180 plus the premium, so it was over 200,000. So I was off. I was on the low side. And it was a great looking album, though. Great looking albums. And old albums have become very popular among collectors, especially collectors from China, because they used to put these books together by different artists and sell them. They sold them like picture books. And often they come into the market and people think they're just prints because there's pages of them. There might be 10 or 20 pages. And it's been known to happen where a book of these it's happened many times actually, and people see them in book form and assume, oh, these are prints of Chinese paintings, probably not that old, and they are old, and they've done them for a long time. We were involved with cleaning a house up in Maine another time, and we found I think 10 of these albums in the house. It was really amazing. Anyway. That did fine, obviously. It was a major lot and brought in a pile of money. And this was another one from the same, this was also from Mrs. Jones, I think. It was sold to J.H. Keane Associates in 1984 also. A box of 6 inks, and that's from Ian J. Frankel for $800, just $800. And Frankel, I don't know if you know about Frankel, but Ian J. Frankel were dealers around for a long time. They were in New York City. They worked also out of Florida, I believe, and they had very fine things. They've closed up, I think, now, but they were around for many years, and they were often headbutting with a friend of mine down in Connecticut named Peter Rosenberg, who ran the Vallon Gallery, and they handled the same kinds of things as Ian J. Frankel, and they were always fighting. But I think in a good-natured way, but they were always fighting. At any rate, they sold good things. And over here, this was that chair that was the Chinese export chair. And this, everybody that looked at this, you think at a glance, this is English. It's an English chair. Look at the form. It's a corner chair. It's an English 18th century corner chair with Queen Anne feet. No, this is Chinese. This is Chinese export for the European market. And they used to make extremely fine copies of popular chairs of the day and tables of the day and furniture of the day. There was just a sale of some of this stuff that came from the Richard Mullender's collection at Bonham's. And this is another example, a very fine example, and ended up going for $7,000, which is, I think, fine. It doesn't seem at all unreasonable for that good of a chair. I've had them over the years. I've had corner chairs and straight back chairs that look English. I had one time that I bought from a dealer, a good dealer, a very good dealer, and he had just assumed it was Portuguese, made in the Philippines for some reason, because of the style and the woods that were used. And I bought it from him pretty reasonably. And later he asked me what it was, and I told him it was a Chinese export chair. And ended up in Philadelphia at the antique show with a friend of mine who sold it very successfully. Anyway, this was a great chair, a really great chair, and it looked like to be in superb condition, $7,000. And this, I think, was also at Doyle's, and I think a relative bargain. It's a reverse painting on glass, measures overall height is 22 inches by 11 inches. A very nice example with a European lady, a Chinese lady seated, leaning up against a tree. Looked like she's waiting for somebody, and very nicely done though. And that old mirror that you know how it degrades and peels and so forth, but also with a beautiful frame. The frame on this was wonderful, terrific frame. Always check out the frames. And somebody paid just $2,500 for it. I think that was very reasonable. They dated it late 18th, early 19th century. That sounds just about right. I would lean more towards 18th century, but there you go. And as you know, the Chinese didn't make glass. When the Europeans were there, they would bring glass sheets in for them to paint on the backs of, to do reverse painting. Reverse painting on mirrors was not in the Chinese repertoire. It was something that was introduced to them, and they were extremely proficient at it. And some of the most beautiful paintings you'll ever see from the 18th century were reverse paintings on glass. And Chinese collectors not that interested in for some reason. Mainland Chinese collectors, what I mean. But they're very popular with Western collectors. And then this was the Bronx sale. There were a few good things there that went through, and I don't think brought a lot too much money. Was this nice guglet or serpent handled ewer, circa 1780, very similar pattern to the one that was on the reticulated vase we already looked at from Malay Brothers, with this scene here. And somebody bought this for just $600, which I think is a really good deal. Because in the past, if you think back to the sales we've covered on eBay, we've had these before, and they sell for typically anywhere from $900 to $1,400 a piece, which is not a surprising number, not unreasonable. Somebody grabbed this for $600. Good going. And then on this was a pair of very rare People might not have recognized these, but these were not huge paintings. These are small. They're 9 by 11 inches, and they're done on pith. And this is very unusual subject matter for pith paintings. Typically, pith paintings show figures, occupational scenes, street scenes, shops and shop owners, examples of daily life in China. Typically, is what they depicted. These Hong scene and port scenes were generally done on paper, and done on English imported paper, or were sometimes done on silk. These were done on pith. And if you don't know what pith is, it's spelled P-I-T-H. And pith is actually a fiber that comes out of a tree. And it's the reason pith paintings are never very, very large is because it's a slice across the tree of the wood is what pith is. It's a fibrous material, and they slice it very, very thin, dry it, and then you can paint on it. And it's extremely brittle stuff because it's it's paper thin, and is just basically a thin slice of wood, almost just like super thin balsa wood. That kind of thing is the best way I can think of it. So these are quite unusual. These are quite unusual. They have their original frames, which are sort of a mess. It looks like they've been repainted. If I bought these, I'd take the paintings out of them and send those frames over to a good restorer and see if he can't clean them up a bit and get them back to their natural state, because they originally were probably lacquered, or were a combination of lacquered and exposed wood. Any rate, they went for only $2,600, $1,300 a piece. That was a good deal. They date them to 1870, and I think that's a little bit late. The property had belonged to John Schorsch. Oh, I didn't know that. There you go. He was a longtime dealer, not without his controversies. And he has a son, David Schorsch, who's an American folk art dealer and has been around for many, many years. And both handled great things. Old Mr. Schorsch bought and sold some fabulous things, and nice item. And then on to this. This was, I think, one of the relative bargains of the month. This was at the Neil auction sale, if you missed it. This was a 24-inch rose mandarin jar with the lid. Very nicely decorated, Greek key border all the way around it, this gold Greek key. Just a terrific example, and it seems to have more people than usual. This one had a lot of people in it. Sometimes they have 2 or 3 up here, 1 over here, and a couple at the bottom. This one has people on horses, all kinds of great stuff. And there's the side of it, again, loaded with imagery. Buddhist symbols, precious objects, people in garden settings, and so forth. $2,000. And this was 24 inches tall. This was not a 12-inch jar. That's about what I would figure a 12-inch jar would be worth, about $2,000 in this quality and that palette. And somebody got this very reasonably. Maybe it had repairs or something. I couldn't see anything. Let me know, because that should have brought more money. And then on to this, the grisaille decorated European subject scene, 18th century plate. This was at Hutchinson's Scottish Auctioneers in London, in Skipton. Now, this went way under the money, and I don't know why. I don't see anything wrong with it. The gilding all the way around on these plates, and as if it's been repaired or restored, if you look at the gilding and the edges, you can see like if it's been cracked and filled in, because it'll interrupt a small area around here. And I don't see anything wrong with this. And the grisaille decoration is in good shape, and you can still see the skin tones on the faces, and the expressions are very clear, very carefully done, meticulous. And there it is, just a really fine piece of export ware for the English market. Beautiful quality. And this went for just $352. That was somebody was paying attention and got that for very inexpensively. These plates in this pattern typically go for $800-900 all the way up to $1,500. And somebody got this one for $350, so they got it for 2/3 off. Not bad. All right. And that's sort of it on the global. Some of the stuff that was happening over on the global pages this past week. For those of you that subscribe, I know a lot of you were following the sales, and I know a number of you bought at some of these sales. Good on you, because there were some good buys. There were some very high prices, but as always, there's always good buys. And leave a bid. Go in there and do the same strategy you do on eBay. I've always said it. Just go in there and leave bids. Also, the Material Culture had their rug auction this week, and they had some very good results, and I'll try to get those in. I'm still putting those together. We'll talk about those a little bit, especially the Chinese silks and textiles. Chinese silks and textiles are still very popular among collectors, as you've seen, and I'm sure it's going to continue from what I've been seeing. And thanks to all of you who subscribe to that section of the site, because it's how we pay for things. Okay, now over to here. This is the eBay results of what happened, and this was a rather nice charger that was put up by Woolworths down in Rhode Island. And this is a Hongxi period dish, very typical of these. This was they often get confused with Wan Li because the way the decoration is sort of quickly and fuzzily done. But this style of decoration on crackle ground. Excuse me, I'm dealing with some hay fever here. My nose is all plugged up. This crackleware with this soft blue and slightly blurry texture is pretty typical of these Hongxi examples. This is what the backs of these look like. Very, very typical. You'll see some crackles in the glaze. Sometimes you see a little bit of chatter lines underneath, and this nicely exposed porcelain foot rim with this little iron oxide line that dances all the way around it. There's a better view of it here. That's what it should look like. All right, and somebody paid $2,550 for this. It's a nice thing. I had a barber's bowl once that was done in this very similar pattern, but had the slot cut out of it, in here to rest up against the back of your head, and when at the barber. And I swear, I think half the time they turned them into barber's bowls just because they broke part of it and they didn't want to throw it away, so they made barber's bowls out of dishes when they chipped out a section of the rim. All right, it's very nice. And they also did these. Often you see them in the peacock, with a peacock in the center, standing in profile. That's often how they're depicted. And they were made mostly for the Southeast Asian market and so forth. And they do turn up periodically, so keep your eye out for them. And they're better than one. I think they're, in some ways, they're more valuable than Wan Li pieces are. And they often get sold for less than Wan Li because people think that they're later than they are. They were made in the 15th century, so they're pretty good. Now on to this. This was that Kangxi floral plate with a deer on it. And what was interesting about this was that it's three colors basically. Okay, it's gilded, blue, and red. But the way they used the red, whoever the artist was, did a really fine job. This was a masterful job of enameling. There it is with the red and gold on the deer, beautifully done with the gold bamboo trees and so forth. There it is. And this was a very clever application, I must say. And it was highly successful on this plate, the way it looks. Were it just blue, it would be, we've seen this pattern before, but the impact of adding just a little gold, a little red enamel to the cobalt underglazed blue, and the plate is a whole different creature. Just a stunning example. And somebody got a really good buy on this for $190. This was sold by a dealer over in the Netherlands. But I love the pattern, and I love that selection, that use of color. Really attractive. And these were sold, and we had talked about these last week, because these they call them wedding lanterns. have always been popular. I have one at my own house. It's just an underglazed blue one with landscapes, but we use it as our porch light actually on our back deck, and it throws a beautiful light at night in the summer. Anyway, this was a pair of them, and I think it went a little on the low side compared to what we've seen them sell for in the past. The price typically for these is in the each for $700 to $800. $900, and somebody got the pair for $12.86, which I think is a terrific buy. And the shipping, whoever this guy is, he has pretty reasonable shipping rates. Shipping these from New Mexico to here would have been only $68. That's quite a feat these days, given the cost of shipping. He probably uses UPS because the post office for these in a good sized box would be about $120 from California or the West Coast to here. All right, that was a good buy. And then this I think was an excellent buy. Wonderful crackleware, soft blue Celadon vase. Nice looking pot, top and bottom. There's the base of it. It had been drilled, obviously. It had been made into a table lamp, but this very thick glaze pooling up around it and so forth. It looks like a 19th century pot to me. Probably early 19th century. There it is. They made these, as a lot of you know, they made these also in the Qianlong period. I think this was a little after. It's probably Jiajing or early Daoguan period. But beautiful quality, nice looking bottom on it, good looking shape, good color. And he shot it in different lights, so you get some sense of the range of colors depending on your monitor. Here it is a little bit greener. Here it is leaning more towards blue. But beautiful looking vase. How big was it? 11 inches? Yeah, 11 and a half inches tall. Ended up selling for $338. And if you had asked me a week ago, I would have said for that tall a vase in that pattern, because these crackleware vases are always so popular, I would have thought it would bring $600 to $800 because it's so nice. And I don't know what happened. It went under the money, and somebody got a great buy. This is why, again, leave a bid, leave a bid, leave a bid. Can't say it enough. And then this is that plate that sold. I had mentioned it sold. We had it in the newsletter a few weeks ago, and it sold for $238. Something happened. Guy didn't pay for it probably, and the seller relisted it. And it sold for $238 around the beginning of the month. And here it is again. It's resold, and this time it went for $251. So it didn't lose money. That's the thing that always, you always worry that if you have to relist something for non-payment, is it going to end up selling for less because it's being relisted? And we've had a number of cases lately where that's been less of a problem. I think people are starting to decide. They just realize that there are people out here who don't pay their bills. They're not serious buyers. Unfortunately, a lot of them are in Shanghai and over in that part of the world, just because the business model is to buy things online, tie them up, and then try to pre-sell them before you have to pay for them. If you can't find a buyer, you just walk away from the deal and don't pay for it, and come up with some excuse. Oh, you've changed your mind. You don't think it's antique. Any rate, so some people came around and decided this was worth owning, and it was. $250 for this is absolutely fine. It's got that wonderful vase design in the middle, this beautifully decorated on a gold ground, and you don't see gold ground famille rose done like this very often. So I think it's a perfectly good deal. Very good. All right, and then on to this, the Jade Kuan Yin. This was a nice looking carving. They're always so difficult to date, aren't they? But when you look at this one, the quality, the details, the way the hair is done, the polish, selection of stone is good. Nice looking piece of stone, nicely polished here. You can see the surface for all that slight, I don't know what you call it, the hazy look to it. There's a look that well done jade has when you look at it under reflective light. And I thought this was a nice piece of carving. Probably late Qing, possibly early Republic, but I wasn't convinced that it was. And somebody picked this up, I think, reasonably, $704. If this had gone for $1,800, I wouldn't have been at all surprised. But $704. Good buy. That was a good buy. And then over to this, these are the vases that Joni's had up. This is one of those Wushang Pu vases. Last week we had one. It was a hat stand, as I recall, and went for about 3,000, right? And then this came up on this. They didn't sell the Wushang Pu vase, the hat stand. Somebody else was selling it, but they brought around 3,000, which is a good price. And then this came up, and this was a square vase that is, this was, I think, 15 inches. Hold on, let's double check the size, because size matters. There's the bottom of it. There we go. 21 inches tall. Okay, this thing was big. Okay, 21 inches tall. And, oh, that's right, yeah, because last week I remember I was talking about it, and I thought, well, it should bring I think I said 4,000 to 5,000. And because of the size, it's so big. And it did very well. It brought a little over 5,000. It brought $5,100. But rare type, highly desirable pattern. The story behind these and the Tang story and all that is one of the most famous stories in Chinese history. But they identify the characters, and there's a whole story. There's a bunch of poems, and everybody wants them. There you go, $5,100. Okay, and then onto this. This was the other vase that they had up for sale, where they on it, if you looked at it carefully, you could see that they identified different areas and landmarks here, on with the scenes, what's being depicted. And this did very well also. It brought $3,350. But the narrative stuff is always interesting. This was stolen. This was not actually stolen, but in the past we've seen these beautiful Canton carved tortoiseshell boxes. They were made in the first half of the 19th century, 1820s, 1830s, 1840s typically. This was a nice example. It was dirty. That was the thing with it. This thing had been left out or not tended to for a very, very long time. And whoever bought it, if they go over this and clean it and oil it up a little bit, it's going to be absolutely smashing. And the last ones we saw of these brought a year or so ago. We had, as a matter of fact, one of our users, I think, bought two of them that came up, and they went for around $1,600, $1,800 a piece, something like that. And this went really reasonably. I don't know why. Maybe people were afraid of trying to shipping it because it's made from carved tortoiseshell, of course, and the sellers in the UK. Maybe they didn't want to risk it, but it went for just $653. That was crazy. That's really a great deal. This was a beautiful box, and if you forget the color, forget how it's sort of ashy looking, that'll clean up. But always look at the details. Look at the way the faces are done, the eyes are done. The condition looks pretty good. I see one tiny little break. One of the heads is missing off one of the figures, but that's not unusual with these because the heads were barely attached to begin with once they were carved. They carved them so thinly. But overall, the box looked to be in good shape, other than its color. And once you get that tortoiseshell conditioned, get some moisture into it, this thing would be glow. It'll be orange. It'll be that beautiful reddish color that you see, the reddish orange that you see on tortoiseshell, fine tortoiseshell. It would be beautiful. All right, and that was it for eBay for the week. And there's a number of things coming up. One of the things coming up is the chimney vase that we talked about, the conjoined vase that we talked about last week, because we had the owner of this vase gave us an inquiry for it, and I encouraged him to put it online. It's a good-looking thing. It's not a modern copy, in my opinion. That's not a modern base. This doesn't look modern. And when you look at the enameling on it, the shading looks really good. All right. I don't think it's a Qianlong example. I think it's a Republic. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's Qianlong. I think it's a Daoguan. A Republic period example, judging by the foot rim, but and some of the decorations. But top quality work. And it's up to $1,575. It closes later today, so by the time you're watching this, it may have closed. But I'll have it on the newsletter page, and you can click the link and see what it brought. Okay, very interesting. I'm happy it's doing well for the man. And okay, gotta wait for it to load. There we go. These are a few things that are coming up. This thing still has 5 days to go. It's up to $6,200. It is a terrific robe with these Ruyi head gilt panels and these rondelles. It's got 4 rondelles on it, and the rondelles are worth. You know, you have to think back. We've seen these rondelles sold before. They've cut, people in the old days would cut them out of robes and frame them. And a good rondelle of this quality alone would sell for about $2,000 to $3,000. All right, so this robe has 4 of them. So there you've got $7,000 or $8,000 worth of rondelles. Then you have all the other work, and it's still in a complete robe. All right. So where will this end up? Probably up around 10,000 by the time it's over. But we'll check back. We'll come back to it and have a look to see how it does. All right, and then this Migolari has up, and it'll be in the newsletter page, a whole bunch of Nonya Straits Peranakan wares, stuff for the Malaysian community. There's a bunch of it. There's hot food plates, soup spoons, bowls, trays, saucers, vases, you name it. There's a whole bunch of it. These big turquoise vases are very attractive, I think. A nice color, yellow and green, and just great looking. And we'll see how those will be in the newsletter page this week. And then this will be in there. This is a carved Cantonese wooden card case. Very nice quality carving. It looked like it's been varnished, or maybe they oiled it before they took the pictures, so it's a little shiny. But if you look at the details are really, really, really good. That's what you want to see. And it's only up to $10 if you want to own a great card case. It's got 9 days to go, so you have plenty of time to think about it. And but go leave a bid on the thing of $200 or $300. You probably won't get it at that price, but it's fun to leave bids. If you're serious about it, leave $500 or $600, and you'll probably get it. And then there's this very nice sort of Yongshen period plate, and it's got a pattern on it that you see on some Kangxi examples. And it's up to just $30. It's got a couple of days to go. It ends on Monday. And then there is this, the oxblood porcelain cup. I've had a couple of inquiries about this. Very nice cup, beautifully trimmed foot. It's probably late 18th or early 19th century, but great color. The color is terrific, very thick, like the underglaze red here is just, it has a very thick look to it. So they really layered it in well, and there's a tiny bit of orange peel on the surface. It's thick enough to do that. There it is, and you can see some of the. You can even see where the rim comes up and curves in a little bit. You can see lots of very thick, heavy bubbles in there, which is a good sign. When you look at bubbles, by the way, people always talk about the bubbles and the glazes of things. What you don't want to see if you look at glazes, and you see the bubbles. If the bubbles suspended in the glaze are sort of all the same size, and they seem very, very regular, walk away. It's a copy. And that's the result of electric gas kilns where they could control the temperatures better. On the older pieces, when you look at the bubbles, you'll see them very irregularly shaped. You'll see some that are 3 times bigger than others. There's a huge amount of very obvious variation in bubble size. And because a few years ago, everybody was saying, well, if it's got underglaze, if it's got bubbles in the glaze, it's old. No, bubbles in the glaze don't mean anything other than it's ceramic. What you want to study is the size of the bubbles, the thickness of the bubbles varying shapes and sizes that look natural. And the modern pieces, they often don't, and sometimes it's so thick it almost looks like it has like a fogginess to it, because the glaze and the bubbles are so thick. You can sometimes you look at where the mark is on the base, and it'll be much more blurred than you normally think of. And you look at it, why is that so blurry? Oh, look at all the bubbles. If that's the effect it's having, it's more than likely a reproduction. Okay, that was just an aside. Okay, now this is up again. Now this sold a few weeks ago or a while ago for a couple of $1,000s, as I recall, and this is not, in my opinion, a copy of a transitional a brush pot. It's just a brush pot that got a crack in it, but it didn't. I suspect it didn't get paid for. And one of the things that's interesting, if you look at this thing, one of the difficulties that sellers have is white balancing their cameras and shooting outside. So here you have, I'm going to bet this was shot on a manual setting, and you see how the blue looks really strange. It looks way too light. It looks like it looks artificially light. Doesn't have the depth. And here the blue shot under a different light now looks too dark. And just as an aside, when you're taking pictures of things, look at the picture, and does the picture match how it looks to you in nature, out with your own eyes? And if the color doesn't look the same, keep shooting, keep reshooting, keep adjusting your color balances until you capture the color, because the color makes all the difference in the world. And you can end up with somebody buying something for a lot of money, and because the colors were a little off, they rethink it, change their mind, and now you have to relist it. So make sure you get your colors right. This looks like a perfectly legitimate transitional period pot to me. I just think it got cracked, and the seller should have spent more time getting the colors right. Learn to white balance your cameras manually. Once you do that, you're all set. There is a technique to it, and every digital camera, if that's what you're using, has a thing on white balancing, and it teaches the camera what natural light, what the true colors of things are. All right, and then lastly is this. There's a pair of hot food pots, like hot food pots. They're utilitarian. You can put chowder in them, and these are nice. They're a pair. They look fine. They look late Ching. They're up to $446. They got a little bit of time left to go today. We'll have them on there if you grab them at the end. They should bring $800 to $1,200, but we'll see. Alrighty, and that's about it. That's about it for the week. We've got a bunch of stuff we're doing around here over the weekend. Going to get some gardening done. We have a massive cluster of poppies in our front yard this year. Every year they get bigger and bigger, and they're up to the poppy plants this year were about 4 feet tall. They were getting bigger and bigger. The buds on them are like this. They're like soup bowls, and they keep spreading around the property. It's terrific. We started with one from my mother-in-law's house a number of years ago, and they've spread, which is terrific. And that's about it. So thanks for watching. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do subscribe. Give us a thumbs up if you like our videos, and leave a comment. Like I say every week, we always read the comments. We don't always respond. We just want to see what people think. And if you have suggestions, make them, because as you know, we do listen. We do read them. We've changed the way we do videos based on the comments that people leave, because we want people to enjoy them, have fun with them. And if you're a member, subscriber to the global member pages, thank you for your support and interest, and all the emails we get and things. It's very gratifying, and it is how we pay for all this, and the work that goes into preparing these videos and things. So it's a big help to us. It's terrific, and it also keeps everybody connected. We get to hear from a few hundred people a week. It's really amazing, and thank you. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.